You signed away 10 years of your life. The words hit Zevia like a physical blow as she stared at the contract in Malcolm Hartwell's hands. The elegant script that had looked so innocent when Alex placed it before her now felt like chains wrapping around her throat. "That's impossible," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the vast marble foyer of the mansion. "Alex said those were apartment papers. I was signing a lease." Welcome back to Mr. Ashbourne Golden Narratives, where love finds its way through the most impossible circumstances. If you're new here, thank you for joining our family of storytellers. And to my incredible subscribers who keep coming back for these journeys of the heart, you are the reason these stories come alive. Today's story will take you on an emotional roller coaster that proves sometimes the most devastating betrayals can lead to the most beautiful love stories. But let's start from where it all begins. It was another late shift at Romano's diner, and Zevia's feet ached from hours of rushing between tables. At 22, she carried the weight of responsibility that most people wouldn't understand. Every dollar she earned went toward rent, food, and Michael's special care needs. "Zevia, you've got a customer at table 12 who specifically asked for you," Sarah called out with a knowing smile. She looked up to see a man in an expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, and a smile that could melt glaciers. He was clearly out of place in their modest diner, but something about his eyes made her stomach flutter. "Hi, I'm Alex," he said as she approached, his voice smooth and confident. "I've been coming here for weeks just hoping to work up the courage to talk to you." Zevia felt her cheeks burn. You've been coming here for weeks?" "Every Tuesday and Friday. I order the same thing, coffee and pie, but I never really eat it. I just sit here and watch you work, wondering what it would be like to make you smile." Her heart hammered against her ribs. Men like Alex didn't notice girls like her. "I'm just a waitress," she whispered. "No," he said, leaning forward with those intense eyes. "You're extraordinary. The way you remember every customer's order, how you always check on the elderly gentleman in the corner booth, how you light up when you talk about your brother, there's something special about you, Zevia." The way he said her name made her knees weak. "How do you know about Michael?" "I listen. Last week you were telling Mrs. Henderson about his drawings. Your whole face changed when you talked about him. That's when I knew I had to meet you properly." Over the next 3 months, Alex became her whole world. He would pick her up after work, driving her home in his sleek car while she still smelled like grease and coffee. He never seemed to mind. "Tell me about your dreams," he would say, his fingers intertwining with hers as they sat in his car outside her apartment building. "I want to take Michael somewhere beautiful," she'd whisper. "Maybe the coast. He's never seen the ocean." "We'll take him together," Alex promised, bringing her hand to his lips. "When I get my promotion, we'll have enough money to give him everything he deserves." Those stolen moments became everything to her. The way Alex would brush her hair from her face, the gentle kisses that made her forget about exhaustion and worry. He made her feel like she was worth something. "I love you," he told her one evening, his forehead pressed against hers. "I know it's fast, but I've never felt anything like this before." "I love you too," she breathed, meaning every word. But at home, Michael could sense something was different about his sister. "Zevia happy now," he said in his simple way, his developmental delays making complex speech difficult. "Michael happy when Zevia happy." She hugged him tight, her heart full. "Yes, Michael. I'm happy." Alex began talking about their future together, a real apartment, maybe even a house someday. "I want to take care of you both," he said. "You've been carrying this weight alone for too long." "I can't ask you to do that," Zevia protested. "Michael is my responsibility." "And you're mine now," Alex said, kissing her deeply. "We're going to be a family." The first crack in her perfect world came when Alex started working late more often. "Big project," he'd explain, but something in his eyes had changed. He was distracted, checking his phone constantly. "Everything okay?" she asked one night. "Just work stress," he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Actually, I have some good news. My boss wants to help me get us a better place. There's some paperwork involved, but it's just formality stuff." Zevia's heart soared. "Really? Alex, that's amazing." "I know, right? The thing is, they need some documents signed quickly. Legal stuff about the apartment lease and employment verification. Nothing major." He pulled out a stack of papers from his briefcase. "I know it's a lot to ask, but could you sign these? I'd do it myself, but they specifically need your signature for the background check." Zevia stared at the papers, her heart pounding with excitement. A real home for her and Michael, away from their cramped apartment with thin walls and broken heating. "Alex, I can't believe this is happening," she said, tears of joy in her eyes. Believe it, beautiful, he said, pulling her close. This is just the beginning of our life together. She didn't read the papers. She was too overwhelmed with happiness, too trusting, too in love. Her signature flowed across page after page, each one bringing her closer to the future she dreamed of. There, she said, handing back the papers. When do we move in? Soon, Alex said, but something flickered across his face too quickly for her to catch. Very soon. That night, as she lay in bed listening to Michael's peaceful breathing from the next room, Zevia couldn't sleep. For the first time in years, she felt hope blooming in her chest. They were going to have a real home. Michael would have his own room. She had no idea that with each signature she'd just signed away 10 years of her life. The next morning, Alex seemed different. Distant. Everything all right? She asked as he dropped her off at work. Perfect, he said, but he barely looked at her. I'll call you later, okay? But he didn't call. Not that day or the next. On the third day, Zevia's phone rang during her lunch break. An unfamiliar number. Hello, is this Zevia Martinez? Yes, this is she. This is Patricia from Blackwood Estate Management. We've been trying to reach you about your employment. You were scheduled to start 3 days ago, and Mr. Blackwood is quite concerned about your absence. Zevia's blood ran cold. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I work at Romano's Diner. Ma'am, according to our records, you signed a 10-year employment contract as a live-in nanny for Mr. Malcolm Blackwood. When can you start? That's impossible, Zevia whispered, her hands shaking. I never signed anything like that. I'm looking at your signature right here, Miss Martinez. Multiple pages, all witnessed and notarized. If you don't report for work by tomorrow morning, we'll be forced to take legal action. The line went dead. Zevia stared at her phone, her world tilting off its axis. She tried calling Alex immediately. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. A text message popped up from an unknown number. The car will pick you up at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Don't make this enjoying the story and comment where you are watching from. I read and reply to all comments. Zevia's hands trembled as she realized the truth. The papers she'd signed in love and trust weren't about an apartment. They were about selling her freedom. And Alex was gone. The black sedan arrived at exactly 8 a.m., just as the message had promised. Zevia stood at her window, watching it idle outside her building like a predator waiting for its prey. Her hands shook as she held the phone, trying Alex's number one more time. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Even his phone was gone. Zevia scared, Michael said from behind her, his innocent eyes wide with worry. Why Zevia crying? She turned to face her brother, her heart breaking. How could she explain that the man she loved had sold her into what felt like slavery? That she might be taken away from him? I have to go somewhere for work, she said, kneeling down to his level. But I'll come back, okay? I promise. No go, Michael said, clinging to her. Michael needs Zevia. The knock on the door came like a death sentence. 3 sharp raps that echoed through their tiny apartment. Miss Martinez? We need to speak with you. Zevia opened the door to find 2 men in expensive suits, their faces cold and professional. Behind them stood a woman with perfectly styled hair and a clipboard. I'm Attorney Jensen, the taller man said. This is my colleague, Mr. Roberts, and Miss Patricia Williams from Blackwood Estate Management. We're here about your employment contract. I keep telling you there's been a mistake, Zevia said, her voice trembling. I never agreed to work for anyone named Blackwood. Ms. Williams stepped forward, her smile as sharp as a blade. Miss Martinez, I have your signed contract right here. 10 years of employment as a live-in nanny to Mr. Malcolm Blackwood's twin children. Your signature is on every page. She thrust the papers toward Zevia, who stared at them in horror. There it was, her handwriting, her signature, over and over again. The papers Alex had told her were for their apartment. This is fraud, Zevia whispered. I was told these were lease documents. That's a matter for the courts to decide, Attorney Jensen said coldly. What matters now is that you have a legal obligation to fulfill. Mr. Blackwood has already paid a significant advance on your salary. I don't want his money, Zevia cried. I want to stay with my brother. Your brother will be fine, Ms. Williams said dismissively. Social services will ensure he's properly cared for. No. Zevia's voice cracked. You can't take me away from him. He's all I have left. Mr. Roberts stepped forward, his hand moving to his jacket. Miss Martinez, you can come with us willingly, or we can make this more difficult. The choice is yours. Michael appeared beside Zevia, his arms wrapping around her waist. No, take Zevia, he cried. Michael needs sister. The sight of her brother's tears broke something inside her. These men didn't care about Michael's special needs, about how much he depended on her. They saw only a contract and a payday. Please, she begged, falling to her knees. I'll do anything. I'll work extra hours, I'll pay back whatever money was advanced. Just don't take me away from him. The contract is binding, Attorney Jensen said without a hint of emotion. You have 5 minutes to pack your belongings. The next hour passed in a blur of horror. Zevia packed a single suitcase while Michael clung to her, both of them crying. She called her neighbor Mrs. Chen, begging her to watch Michael until she could figure out what to do. I don't understand, Mrs. Chen said, her elderly face creased with worry. How can they just take you? I don't know, Zevia sobbed. But I'll find a way back to him. I promise. The car ride to the Blackwood estate felt like a funeral procession. Zevia stared out the window, watching her old life disappear behind tinted glass. She tried to memorize every street, every landmark, anything that might help her find her way back to Michael. The Blackwood mansion rose before them like a fortress, all stone and iron gates, designed to keep people in as much as out. Zevia's stomach churned as the car pulled up to the imposing front entrance. Welcome to your new home, Ms. Williams said with false cheerfulness. Mr. Blackwood is waiting for you in his study. The interior of the mansion was cold and sterile, all marble floors and expensive artwork that felt more like a museum than a home. Zevia's footsteps echoed as she was led through endless corridors to a heavy oak door. Mr. Blackwood? Ms. Williams knocked softly. Miss Martinez is here. Send her in. The voice from behind the door was deep, commanding, and utterly without warmth. Malcolm Blackwood stood behind a massive desk, his back to the door as he stared out a window that overlooked manicured gardens. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that was slightly disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it. When he turned around, Zevia's breath caught. He was handsome in a harsh, angular way, but his eyes were what stopped her cold. They were gray like storm clouds and filled with a pain so deep it made her take a step back. So, he said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. You're the woman who thinks she can scam me. I'm not trying to scam anyone, Zevia said, finding her voice. I was tricked into signing those papers. I thought they were for an apartment lease. Malcolm's laugh was bitter and cold. An apartment lease? How convenient. And I suppose you have no idea who Alex Morrison is. Zevia's heart stopped. You know Alex? I know he's my former employee who stole $50,000 from me before disappearing with his girlfriend. The room spun around her. $50,000? The amount I paid in advance for your services. Money that Alex has undoubtedly spent on his new life in whatever country he's fled to. Zevia collapsed into the chair across from his desk, her legs unable to support her anymore. I didn't know. I swear to you I didn't know any of this. Your ignorance doesn't change the fact that you signed a legally binding contract, Malcolm said, moving around his desk to tower over her. You owe me 10 years of service, Miss Martinez, and I intend to collect every single day. Please, she whispered, looking up at him with tears streaming down her face. I have a brother. He has special needs. He can't survive without me. Something flickered in Malcolm's eyes, but it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. You should have thought of that before you decided to trust a criminal. I loved him, she said, the words torn from her throat. I thought he loved me too. Love is a lie people tell themselves to justify their stupidity, Malcolm said harshly. My wife thought she loved me too. Right up until childbirth killed her. The raw pain in his voice made Zevia look up at him with new eyes. This wasn't just about money or contracts. This man was drowning in grief, and he was determined to drag everyone down with him. I'm sorry for your loss, she said softly. But taking me away from my brother won't bring her back. No, Malcolm said, his voice dropping to a whisper. But it will ensure my children have the care they deserve. And you, Miss Martinez, will provide that care from somewhere in the mansion. The sound of a baby needing comfort. Malcolm's entire demeanor changed, his cold mask slipping for just a moment to reveal desperate worry. That's Emma, he said, already moving toward the door. She's been fussy all morning. Lucas is probably awake too. Despite everything, Zevia's heart responded to the sound of a child in distress. She followed Malcolm through the corridors to a nursery that was clearly designed with love. 2 cribs sat side by side, and in them were the most beautiful babies she'd ever seen. Emma had dark hair like her father, but her eyes were bright blue. Lucas was fairer, with golden hair that caught the light. They couldn't have been more than 6 months old. They're beautiful, Zevia whispered, all her anger temporarily forgotten. They're all I have left, Malcolm said, his voice breaking slightly as he picked up Emma. And I'll do whatever it takes to protect them. The baby quieted immediately in his arms, her tiny fist curling around his finger. Zevia watched the transformation in Malcolm's face, saw the fierce love and desperate vulnerability he tried so hard to hide. I understand, she said quietly. I'd do anything for Michael too. Their eyes met across the nursery, and for a moment, the hostility between them softened into something like mutual understanding. They were both people who had lost everything trying to protect the ones they loved. Then Malcolm's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He answered it with his free hand, Emma still cradled against his chest. What? His face went pale. When? How bad? Zevia watched in growing alarm as Malcolm's expression shifted from concern to horror. All right, he said, ending the call. His eyes found hers across the room. There's been a fire. At your apartment building. Your brother didn't make it. The sound that came from Zevia's throat wasn't human. It was the sound of a heart breaking, of a soul shattering into pieces too small to ever put back together. Michael was gone. Her baby brother, her whole world was gone. And she was trapped, bound by a contract to a man who would never let her go. The funeral was held 3 days later under a gray sky that seemed to weep with Zevia's tears. She stood beside Michael's grave in a black dress that Malcolm had provided, flanked by 2 security guards who watched her every move. Even in her grief, she was still a prisoner. The ride back to the mansion was quiet when she arrived. She went straight to the nursery. She'd spent the last 3 days in a haze of grief, barely eating, barely sleeping. But now, looking at Emma and Lucas in their cribs, she felt something stir inside her chest. They were so small, so innocent, just like Michael had been when their parents died. Hello, little ones, she whispered, reaching out to touch Emma's soft cheek. The baby turned toward her touch, her blue eyes opening wide. Mama, Emma babbled, the sound piercing Zevia's heart. No, sweetheart, Zevia said softly. I'm not your mama. But I'm here now. I'm going to take care of you. Lucas gurgled from his crib, his tiny fist reaching toward her. When she picked him up, he settled against her chest with a contented sigh, as if he'd been waiting for her. You're naturals with them, came a voice from the doorway. Zevia turned to see Malcolm watching them, their beau. Before she could finish her sentence, he had disappeared. Over the following weeks, Zevia fell into a rhythm with the twins. She woke with them at dawn, fed them, played with them, sang lullabies that her mother had once sung to her and Michael. During their naps, she would sit in the garden and sketch, something she hadn't done since Michael died. You're different than I expected, he said one evening as they sat in the living room. The twins were finally asleep, and the house felt peaceful for the first time since Zevia had arrived. What did you expect? Someone who would hate me and my kids. I am the reason you lost your only brother. They're easy to love, Zevia said, warmth spreading through her chest. They're innocent. Pure. They don't know about contracts or betrayal or any of the ugly things adults do to each other. You're not ugly, Malcolm said suddenly, then seemed surprised by his own words. I mean, what happened to you? It wasn't your fault. I was angry, grieving. I wanted someone to blame. You had every right to be angry. Alex stole from you. Alex stole from both of us, Malcolm said, his voice growing hard. He stole your freedom, your trust, your brother's life. If I ever find him. Don't, Zevia said quickly. Don't carry that anger for my sake. I've learned that holding on to hate only hurts the person carrying it. Malcolm stared at her in amazement. How are you not bitter? How are you not consumed with rage? Because rage won't bring Michael back. And it won't undo what happened. That night, Zevia lay in her bed, the comfortable guest room that had become her sanctuary, and thought about the strange turns her life had taken. She was still trapped, still bound by a contract she'd never intended to sign. But the twins needed her, and increasingly she needed them too. Few months later, Malcolm fell ill, suddenly, severely. A kidney condition, the doctor said. Acute and aggressive. Despite all his money, all his influence, he couldn't find a donor. His body was failing him. His life slipping through his fingers. And what he never expected was that the person who had every reason to walk away would be the one to save him. Zevia was a match. She donated her kidney without any second thought. When he opened his eyes after surgery, disoriented and weak, the first thing he asked was, Who was the donor? The doctor hesitated. Your nanny, Zevia. Malcolm's breath caught. Zevia? He blinked rapidly, trying to process it. Take me to her. Please. They wheeled him to her room. She lay in bed, pale and delicate, her breathing steady but shallow. Her eyes fluttered open when she sensed someone near. "Zevia?" Malcolm reached out and took her hand. "Why?" Her lips parted, her voice barely a whisper. "The twins, they need you. And I know what it's like to grow up without anyone. They don't deserve that." His eyes filled with tears. Real tears, unfiltered and raw. For the first time since his wife's death, the cold, composed CO broke down. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. "I judged you. Hurt you. And still you." Zevia gave his hand a soft squeeze and smiled faintly. "It's okay." He sat beside her in silence for a moment, then said softly, "There's something else. I should have told you sooner." She turned her head slightly, her brow furrowed. "Your brother," he said, "Michael, he's alive." Her whole body tensed. "What?" "I didn't believe you at first. I had to be sure you weren't lying. So I had someone look into it. He was rescued before the fire spread through the house. He's safe, Zevia. They got him out." With a choked sob, she struggled to sit up. "Michael is alive?" Malcolm nodded. "Yes, he is." She broke down, crying uncontrollably, her hands trembling as she covered her face. "Where is he?" She whispered through tears. "Where is my brother?" "He's being taken care of." His own heart breaking. Myself. "Even when you thought he was gone forever, you were still good. You treated my children like your own." "I was selfish. I felt your attention would be divided if you knew he was alive. I wanted all your love for my kids alone. I'm sorry, Zevia, please forgive me." He pulled her into a gentle hug, holding her while she cried. A few days later, when they were both well enough to be discharged, Malcolm handed her an envelope. "You can go," he said. "I've ended your contract. There's enough here to start a new life." But Zevia pushed it back to him. "I want to finish what I started," she said quietly. "But I have one request." He raised an eyebrow. "Anything. Let Michael stay with us. Just until the contract ends." He didn't hesitate. "Of course." And so, for the first time since that fire, Zevia was reunited with her brother. The moment she saw him, nothing else mattered. Not the years of pain, not the betrayal, not the contract. Only him. She wrapped her arms around him and wept, not in sorrow but in joy. One evening when the twins were sleeping peacefully and the mansion felt less like a prison and more like a home, Zevia was in the library, curled up in a leather chair with a book, when Malcolm found her. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, holding 2 glasses of wine. "Of course," she said, accepting the glass he offered. Their fingers brushed again, but neither of them pulled away. Malcolm settled into the chair across from her, but the distance felt intentional, careful. "I've been thinking about what you said. About choosing to stay. And?" He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she'd learned meant he was struggling with something. "I'm asking if you think there could be something between us. Something real." The honesty in his voice made her chest tighten. "I'm not asking this of you out of pity or because you saved my life. I'm in love with you, Zevia." "It's not just you," she whispered. "I feel it too. But I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of trusting again. Of letting someone in and having them destroy me." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Alex didn't just break my heart. He broke my ability to believe in love." Malcolm moved closer, his presence warm and solid. "I'm not Alex. I know that. But fear isn't rational." She looked up at him, tears threatening. "What if I'm wrong again? What if I'm just seeing what I want to see?" "Then we'll figure it out together," Malcolm said, reaching out to touch her face. "I'm not going anywhere, Zevia. I'm not disappearing with your heart and your life savings." Despite everything, she almost smiled. "You're a billionaire. You don't need my life savings." "I don't need your money," he said, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "But I think I need you." The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Zevia felt herself melting under his touch, her defenses crumbling. "Malcolm, A baby's cry cut through the moment. Emma's voice, scared and demanding comfort. "I should go to her," Zevia said, but Malcolm's hand on her wrist stopped her. "We both should," he said. "Together." They walked to the nursery together, and something about that simple act felt monumental. Not just Zevia going to care for his children, but both of them as a unit. Emma was standing in her crib, tears streaming down her face. When she saw them, her cries intensified, her little arms reaching out. "Hey, sweetheart," Zevia said, lifting her up. "What's wrong?" "Mama," Emma sobbed, clinging to Zevia's shirt. The word stopped them both. Emma had been babbling mama for weeks, but this was different. This was deliberate, directed at Zevia. "She's never." Malcolm's voice was thick with emotion. She's never called anyone that before. I'm not her mother, Zevia said quickly, but Emma just burrowed deeper into her embrace. Maybe not by blood, Malcolm said softly. But look at her. Look at how she trusts you, how she loves you. If that's not a mother's love. Lucas had woken up too, and Malcolm picked him up, the four of them standing close together in the dim nursery. For a moment they looked like what they were becoming, a family. I love them, Zevia whispered, overwhelmed by the depth of her feelings. I love them so much it scares me. I know, Malcolm said. I can see it. They can feel it. Mama, Emma said again, patting Zevia's cheek with her small hand. Yes, baby, Zevia said, tears flowing freely now. Mama's here. Malcolm's sharp intake of breath made her look at him. You called yourself their mother. I didn't mean. I want you to, he said urgently. I want you to be their mother. I want you to be my wife. The words hung in the air like a prayer, like a promise, like everything Zevia had ever wanted but never dared to hope for. Malcolm. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I've lost too much time already, wasted too much of my life being angry and closed off. He shifted Lucas to one arm and reached for her hand. I don't want to waste another day not telling you how I feel. How do you feel? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Like I've been holding my breath for 2 years and you've finally given me permission to breathe. Like my heart remembered how to beat. Like maybe Sarah sent you to us because she knew we needed you. Emma had fallen asleep against Zevia's chest, but Lucas was watching them with those bright green eyes that seemed to see everything. She would have loved you, Malcolm continued. Sarah would have loved your strength, your kindness, the way you love without reservation even after being hurt. You don't know that, Zevia said, but there was no conviction in her voice. I do know. Because I loved her and I love you and love recognizes love. He squeezed her hand. Marry me, Zevia. Not because of a contract, not because of obligation or pity, but because we choose each other. The proposal was everything she'd never known she wanted, not grand or public, but intimate and honest, surrounded by the children who had brought them together. Yes, she whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop it. Yes. Malcolm's face lit up with hope. Yes, she said more firmly. I choose you. I choose us. I choose this family. Malcolm kissed her then, gentle and sweet, mindful of the babies in their arms. It was a kiss full of promise, of new beginnings, of love that had grown from the ashes of loss. Dada, Lucas babbled, reaching between them, and they both laughed through their tears. That's right, little man, Malcolm said. We're going to be a family. Zevia's journey from betrayal to beautiful love proves that sometimes our darkest moments are just the beginning of our greatest blessings. What started as the worst day of her life, signing away her freedom, became the path to finding her true family, her soulmate, and a love deeper than she ever imagined possible. If this story moved you, hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss a story that could change your perspective on love, loss, and finding your way home. Speech balloon, comment below and tell me. Have you ever had a moment that felt like the end of the world but turned out to be a new beginning? What would you have done in Zevia's situation? Would you have stayed for love or left for freedom? Do you believe some people are meant to find each other, even through the most impossible circumstances? Thank you for watching.